You are about to listen to the greatest radio show ever. And due to contractual obligations and to shield our airwaves and corporate licensees from any semblance of liability, responsibility, and gullibility, we must tell you the views represented on this show are not necessarily those of this station or its management. This radio show contains differing points of view on current political topics, and due to the nature of its contents, it should be heard by everyone. Thank you for listening. Now live from the Devil Radio Studios in Madison, Wisconsin, where the political party is just beginning. Welcome to the Devil's Advocate Show. Friends proving it's never personal, only politics.
Please allow me to introduce myself.
Here is your host, Mike Crute.
Welcome to the Devil's Advocates Radio Show, the Friday Eve. That makes it Thursday edition, right, Tom?
It is, Crudy. How you doing, buddy? Evan on the board, our fair audience. Great to be with you as always. We can make it to Friday. I'm so sure of it.
You know what? I'm a little aggrieved.
You got grievances already? It's only Thursday.
I know it's a little too early for him, but I'm going to start right here, right now with the grievance. First and foremost, it will not be the fact that we didn't book any guests today. We got some fine guests. We've got our pal Rick Smith. He is the host of the Rick Smith Show. He's going to join us very soon, about 4:30 Central Time. That'd be 5:30 Eastern. Also, Charles Franklin, pollster extraordinaire, the director of the Marquette University Law School polling outfit right here in the great state of Wisconsin, has some new national polling. They polled the heir apparent to Trump, right, Don? DeSantis, Trump. There's some good polling out. It'll be interesting. We'll get there. But where I want to start today with a little grievance on behalf of working stiffs, men and women in the railway industry. And nobody wants to hear about a railway strike before Christmas. You know, you talk about supply chains being disrupted.
Right.
Something of an issue, which is perhaps, why it's coming to a head now. Because now labor might have some little schism of
leverage.
Leverage, yes, thank you. I was searching for a word. And of course, now they don't. Now they've been kneecapped in a bipartisan fashion by the U.S. Congress. And while I certainly didn't want to see a multi-billion-dollar a day losing rail strike and, snarl things and little Timmy doesn't get his Christmas turkey, I didn't want any of those things to happen, Dom. But ultimately, don't the working stiffs have the right to negotiate their labor? Apparently, they don't.
That's kind of the point of the union, right?
Used to be.
No, it is. It's a little discerning, and that's why we're bringing our labor buddy Rick Smith on at 4:30 to discuss it. So let's lay down some of the facts as we know them, as they are being reported right now at the Washington Post. The Senate on Thursday adopted a measure that forces a deal between warring national freight railroads and their unions, averting a potential December 9th strike that would have crippled U.S. travel and commerce ahead of the busy holiday shopping season. The overwhelmingly bipartisan 80 to 15 vote sends the measure to President Biden's desk as he requested earlier this week, though lawmakers were unable to provide rail workers with any of the paid sick leave benefits that union leaders vigorously sought in recent months. Under the agreement, rail workers are set to see a roughly 24% pay increase by 2024 while gaining more flexibility to take time off for doctor's appointments. The measure also grants them one paid personal day, though that does not include any new dedicated time off for illness. The deal mirrors the terms the White House brokered with railroads and union leaders this September, clinching what many at the time thought was an end of the standoff. Initially, 8 of the country's 12 rail unions approved the arrangement, hoping to avert a strike, but four other rail labor organizations opted in November to reject the proposal, opposition that constituted slightly more than half of all rail workers. The outcome landed the negotiations in the lap of Congress, where some Democrats and Republicans seemed reluctant to wade into the talks, but resigned to the reality that inaction could cripple the economy. In both the House and Senate, Democrats led last-minute efforts to add additional paid leave days to the deal, while Republicans tried to create a cooling-off period that would have extended the discussions into next year, but both sides failed in their attempts to revise the original terms the White House had brokered. Suppliers and businesses across the nation are going to begin shutting down operations soon if they think a strike is imminent, Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer, a Democrat, warned Thursday morning as he set the chamber on its course to vote, warning that a shutdown means nobody wins and everybody loses. The result was a rare, swift, bipartisan outcome that marked the first time Congress has intervened in rail negotiations since 1992, invoking a nearly century-old law to successfully ward off a strike. Such a shutdown would have cost the economy $2 billion a day. The Senate vote following the House vote passage a day earlier quickly produced mixed, visceral reaction among labor groups that had been split over the deal from the start. Here's a quote from Tom Modica, 36, a rail mechanic in Chicago. Here's what Tom said. "We carry the country on our backs, whether Congress realizes it or not. The fact that they are willing to force a contract down our throats to keep the railroads from shutting down means we're important. But they get 6 days, and we're out here in the snow all day, and we don't. It's pretty hypocritical."
Dominic, we've got some sound to offer as well, both from the current Speaker of the House, till January. It's still Pelosi. Let's start with Pelosi, and then we'll get to Biden, because this had to be a legislative piece, and it had to have the will of the president as well. Let's start with Pelosi, though. Cut 7.
We think they should have paid sick leave. And so that was never going to be happening in the negotiation. The railroads were just not going to that place.
Yeah, that's why they wanted to strike, Nancy.
Right. You shut down at $2 billion a day. All of a sudden, maybe they're a little more amiable to maybe providing a few paid sick days.
Let's go to cut number 8, Nancy Pelosi, rail strike.
We stand firmly in support of paid sick leave. It's an outrageous that every developed country in the world has paid sick leave except the United States of America.
And as labor would try to carve it out for the rail industry, you kneecap them. That was my impression of what has happened this afternoon very rapidly, Dom. I've never seen Congress move like this. A little bit more. Pelosi, cut 9.
If we didn't take the action we did yesterday, 765,000, over 750,000 jobs would be lost, including union jobs, $2 billion a day.
And then they'd be rehired once the strike was resolved, probably at the terms labor were seeking.
Hence the leverage. That's the leverage. That's the point.
Pelosi, cut 10. House vote was necessary.
It was something that was necessary, and the president asked us to do it.
So this came from Joe. Scranton Joe, Amtrak Joe, right? Rode the train every day. That's what they said.
Yeah, can't stop the trains.
The train? Can't stop the Mussolini say that?
Apparently, he kept him on time.
Let's jump down to President Joe Biden. Again, the topic, the rail strike averted through a direct act of Congress, a bipartisan action, apparently at the bequest of President Joe Biden. Let's hear it from the president. Cut 15, please.
I negotiated a contract no one else could negotiate. The only thing that was left out was whether or not it was paid leave. I've been trying to get paid leave, not just for rail workers, for everybody.
Okay. More from Joe Biden. Cut 16, please.
I think we're going to get it done, but not within this agreement.
Yeah, not if you kneecap the unions, Joe. Effectively, you made a command decision that the Congress was going to inject itself in the middle of this labor negotiation. And, it was democracy. There were a majority of the union members that voted this was not acceptable. They weren't going back to work if they weren't going to be granted sick leave. Like the guys out there working in the snow with no sick leave, Joe. Let's keep playing. The president, he's not always my favorite president. Cut 17.
We're one of the few major countries in the world that don't have it. It's about time.
Okay, and let's blame it on the Republicans now. Cut 18, please.
I've been trying to get paid leave, not just for rail workers, for everybody. But that other team, they're called the Republicans, they voted against it. They said we couldn't do it.
Yeah, but this was a bipartisan act at your direction, Joe. Let's keep going before I show my true colors here. Cut number 18, 19, I believe. Gonna go back. 19.
Avoid the rail strike, keep the rails running, keep things moving. And I'm going to go back and we're going to get paid leave, not just for rail workers, but for all workers.
And only he can fix it. Sounds a little Trump.
I appreciate the efforts, Joe, but you're kind of going against what the whole concept of labor is for. And I get it. If there's a law back, from whatever, and you can justify doing this action, let's just say it though. You're doing it for business. You're doing it to keep the money rolling. Well, that's kind of, what you want to get something for the entire people. You want paid sick leave, for example, for everybody in this country. Well, I don't know, maybe a work stoppage would do something like that. Maybe focus some people's attention on it. Like, hey, how much does it cost to give everybody sick leave in this country? And then figure out how much you're going to lose by a work stoppage. That you're going to stop that too? I mean, come on. That is the entire point of using the leverage that you have as labor. The best thing you can do, the most leverage you have in labor is to withhold it. That's the point.
As long as you're not withholding labor during the course of the next, 2 hours ish.
Yeah. Well,
strikes here.
I have no reason to, Kurt. I'm quite happy with my employment situation. But some people aren't. And if you're not, and if you're in a union, I mean, this is what you vote for the Dems for, right? I'm not surprised the Republicans were on this. Of course they were. But I saw some weird things. Josh Hawley apparently said he wanted to see paid sick leave in there. I don't know if he really meant it or if he just wanted to throw a wrench into the negotiations. But to not have labor's back. Now, if Joe comes out, there's somehow, if they can get a national paid sick leave bill and it gets passed, then okay, it'll blunt some of my criticism, but I don't see a path for that happening anytime soon, Joe or Nancy.
Folks, you are listening to the Devil's Advocates Radio Show. It's Thursday. I'm like 98% sure.
Pretty sure.
Friday Eve, but grievances, we're airing them on behalf of our working brothers and sisters out there. The rail strike averted. Santa Claus, he's going to get paid. I mean, the merchandisers, right? That's really what it's about. Moving the merchandise underneath the trees. And then eventually, like a week later, they all come back. Because all the kids hate the sweaters. They all do. Come back. More Devils.
Closing time. Every new beginning comes from some.
And we can all look in a mirror and find some blame somewhere.
Okay, Boomer.
We are the boy band. Your tween made you see. We are the boy. It's painful concert number 3. We are the boy band. We're 5 and 19. We are the boy band. Always singing on key.
You love your kids enough to take them to see their favorite band. Love them enough to make sure they're buckled up in the back seat. Show them you love them. Keep them safe. Visit nhtsa.gov/the right seat. Brought to you by the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration and the Ad Council.
Cardall put out these weird, sad videos interviewing incapacitated elders in their nursing homes that don't have the ability to say, don't use me as your political prop.
If they are what you say they are, then you shouldn't be doing it how you did it.
Yes, it was the kids using the parents as props. Well, my old man hasn't talked since 76. Of course, he would have voted for Trump. That's the evidence. Videos. People that can't talk.
It is wrong. It's absolutely wrong.
Check out the entire podcast library at darnwi.com.
Telling my girls about my Alzheimer's diagnosis was hard.
But Mom's early detection gave us time to make a plan.
Talk to your family about seeing a doctor. Go to alz.org/time to talk. A message from the Alzheimer's Association and the Ad Council.
You are never far away from your favorite radio station. We're always streaming on TuneIn and the Civic Media app. And if you missed your favorite show or game, listen to a podcast of it anytime on the app or our website, civicmedia.us.
Here's your Devil Radio forecast. Mainly clear skies tonight with lows around 28. Winds out of the south 10 to 20 miles an hour. Highs level off around 49. Tomorrow, overcast skies. Slight chance for scattered showers tomorrow night. Lows level off around 16. Cloudy skies expected. Dry and much cooler Saturday and Sunday with highs from the mid-20s to the upper 30s. For Civic Media, I'm meteorologist Eric Height. Currently, it's 33 degrees.
When they go low, we get high. The Devil's Advocates.
And we are back. Thank you for listening to the Devil's Advocates radio show. It's the 420 break, but you can join us on the lines at 844-967-2789. Our pal Rick Smith going to join us at the bottom of the hour.
Dominic, I got to tell a super quick story. Then we're going to the Lions. Scott Walker, who apparently somehow finds his way almost every day on my Facebook stream, either posting some Bible verse or, as was the case the other day, and always some politics. Oh, it's Kristi Noem's birthday, and then him and Kristi Noem in the same picture. You know, he's so proud that he knows all the important people like Governor Kristi Noem. But anyways, remember when we were back at the iHeart days, Dom, and Vicky McKenna was right down the hallway, the Icky Vicky. She was a right-wing talk radio hostess. I listened to just a smidge of her today. Got to cleanse the palate. Got to like jam an ice pick in my ear. So anyways, Scott Walker was an in-studio guest right before the holiday, before Christmas. And he was wearing like a Packer Letterman jacket, like he was a Packer player or something, got a letter. Anyways, it was sort of corny, but he brought her the pecans, his famous recipe. Must be grandma's or something, sort of a sugary coated pecan recipe. So anyways, he leaves, you know, kind of skittishly around me because we worked just down the hallway and he knew who we were. And Vicky comes up. Hey, Carly, you want these? Okay. So she hands me the Scott Walker gifted pecans. And my initial reaction was to walk into our studio and throw them away. But then I got them out. I'm thinking, no. There's a point to this. And so anyways, I tasted them. You know, these were nearly world famous, according to Wanker. He floated around, giving them to right-wing talk radio hosts all around the state. And I tried them. And I got to tell you, Dom, after he posted the recipe the other night, I felt it necessary to let him know, A, Vicky didn't like your stinking coated pecans. She gave them to me. I tried them. They suck, sir. In fact, if I had to characterize the taste, it was sugar-coated desperation.
Sounds about right. I thought they were fine. It was a sugar-coated pecan, whatever.
Anyways, the union busting made me think of Scott Walker today. I just didn't expect it from the blue team.
A little bit more here before we get to the phones. 844-967-2789. Political reporting. Monday, of course, today, Biden endorsed moving the bill that would impose contract minus the sick days. He said it was in interest of avoiding the rail shutdown. It was a bitter pill to swallow, political rights for organized labor, a core Democratic constituency, but one Biden insisted was necessary. 2 additional Senate votes, one to add paid sick leave and one to extend the period for which during which the unions can't strike by another 60 days, both failed. Though the sick leave bill garnered more yes votes than no votes, including from 6 Republicans, it still failed because it did not achieve the 60-vote threshold. I always knew you were a socialist, Senator Bernie Sanders joked to Senator Ted Cruz on the Senate floor after he voted in favor of the additional paid sick leave.
Yet they didn't have the steam to get it across the finish line.
Correct.
844-967-2789. Chris from Sun Prairie, a union-friendly lady yourself. How you doing, Chris?
Hey, Chris.
Oh my, I'm very upset. This is just like really got me. I'm just so upset. I really, this Biden just lost me, completely lost me on this one. This is like what Ronald Reagan did to Patco. I mean, I just can't even believe that they're doing this. I really can't. I can't think of anything worse that they could do. And I totally disagree with it. And I think there's other measures they could take before you ever go busting the union and getting in unions negotiations. Maybe you should nationalize these railroads. You should do something else. If they're that important to the national interest, do something else. Don't go after the workers. The workers are being worked to the bone. These men are not, and women are not being given any days off for sick time at a time where, you know, we've had COVID. This is not okay. These workers deserve to have a bargaining right, and they do not. They're not being given a seat at the table. This is not even democratic. Very upset about this. We need to understand. They're running the railroad through our towns. They're not getting adequate support. They're not getting adequate time off. They're not getting adequate benefits, pay. Everybody thinks these jobs are lucrative. They need to look at what has happened to them over the past, decade or so.
Well, union busting certainly has undermined the working person's wage. And of course, when you cannot take collective action, if you can't do a labor strike to try and drive home your point, to try and win your little bit of leverage as labor, well, then you don't have any leverage.
Well, I mean, Warren Buffett is also one of the owners of those rail lines. And, when a rich white guy is going to catch a break. 844-967-2789. Ron, you're up. Welcome. What do you got?
Hey, well, Chris kind of stole my thunder a little bit. I agree with it. The way this should have been handled was the way they handled it in the West Wing. They get labor and they get labor and the railways in a room, sit them down and say, you got till midnight to solve this. If you don't solve it by midnight, we're nationalizing the railways and drafting the workers into the military.
Ron, I feel like the president, I'm not defending Joe Biden or his actions in this case, but he was obviously intimately involved in the negotiations prior. They thought they had a deal. It was not adopted by the Democratic majority of the union members, although 8 of 12 unions did accept the terms, but that wasn't a majority of the members. And then the Democrats, along with colleagues across the aisle like Ted Cruz, went and chopped the unions off at the knees. And I think that is, Democrats wonder why they keep losing the white working class. And it's reasons like these, NAFTA and chopping out the railway strike. The rest of us, though, Merry Christmas. Get your turkey. We got a fine guest. He is Rick Smith, host of the Rick Smith Show and a union guy himself. He joins us next.
The pecan sandies.
That's disgusting. Put it away, please. We don't do that here.
Quit surfing the dial. You already found the greatest radio station ever, Devil Radio, on 92.7 FM and WTTN 1580 AM.
Darcy Haber, I hear you have solar panels on your office building. Since when are real estate brokers concerned about the environment?
You should find outstanding real estate service while
How you doing, guys?
I'm well. How's it going?
Doing very well, thanks.
Here too.
Oh, I'll throw on the camera. I didn't. Sorry.
Oh, no worries. Good to hear from you. How's it going?
Hey, Rick.
Well,
yeah, all things considered.
yeah, no, I mean, I'm down here in Georgia trying to, get our members out to vote. So, and then, doing the show here, trying to get Warnock on the show for Saturday.
Well,
That'd be good.
Yeah, fingers crossed. That's awesome. All right, we got 3 minutes till return.
Stop into any location for an immediate interview or apply online at Salvatore's Tomato.
Has passed legislation to bind rail companies and their workers to a proposed settlement they reached in September, but 4 of the 12 unions balked at. The bill aims to head off a nationwide rail strike. The measure now goes to President Biden's desk for his signature. President Biden and French President Emmanuel Macron are vowing to maintain a united front against Russia and its war in Ukraine. At the White House today, they also discussed issues France and other European allies have raised with Biden's signature climate legislation.
There's tweaks that we can make that can fundamentally make it easier for European countries to participate and or be on their own. But that is something that is a matter to be worked out.
An inflation gauge tracked by the Fed slowed in October, prices up 6% over last year. On Wall Street, stocks ended mixed. The Dow and the S&P down, the Nasdaq up. I'm Ben Thomas.
We tried Dynavite for gut health and immune support, and after a couple of weeks, our little Gizmo was acting like a puppy again. His coat was shinier, he had a lot less scratching and shedding, and he seemed like his happy old self.
My dog smelled and scratched constantly. We bathed and sprayed her, took her to the vet, but no results. Now, a little Dynavite in her food helps Bella keep her beautiful coat with no scratching or smell.
Get 10% off your next order of Dynavite nutritional supplements for dogs at Dynovite.com. Happier, healthier with every bite. Over 1 million pets helped with Dynovite.
Looking for the perfect gift? Get them a shirt from Untuck It. Untuck It shirts are designed to be worn untucked. They're the easiest way to keep him looking sharp and feeling comfortable. You can't go wrong with their super soft flannels, wrinkle-free shirts, performance shirts with stretch, and cozy sweaters that are all perfect for right now. They even have a line for her. Find the perfect gift for every guy on your list at one of 80+ Untuck It stores or at untuckit.com. Untuck It, shirts designed to be worn.
For Civic Media, I'm Terry Bell with this news. A 10-year-old boy in Milwaukee is charged with homicide as an adult after admitting he killed his mother in November. He first told police it was an accident, but investigators did some more digging after relatives said they found his lack of remorse strange. Police say they found out he went online the next day and bought a virtual reality headset his mother wouldn't let him have. Senator Ron Johnson is calling for a vote to end the military's COVID-19 vaccination requirement. Several Republicans are warning they'll drag out Senate consideration of a massive annual military policy bill unless they get a vote. Johnson says the armed forces are discharging too many men and women because they don't want to get the shot. In sports, the Bucks beat the Knicks last night 109-103. You're listening to Devil Radio, 92.7 FM, WTTN 1580 AM.
Occupy didn't start on Wall Street. It started on our street, the Devil's Advocates.
Welcome back to the Devil's Advocates Radio Show, the Thursday edition. A fine guest joining us right now, live via Zoom from Georgia. He is Rick Smith from the Rick Smith Show host. You can find him here right on the Civic Media Network. Tune him in 8 to 10 p.m. almost every night, unless you get preempted by a little, basketball or something, Rick, a couple of markets, but every night, everywhere else, it's Rick Smith, the only guy I know who probably logged more miles than me this summer. Rick, how you doing, man?
Hey, Rick.
I'm doing great. Angry, very angry in this moment. I gotta start with anger.
Just reacting, Rick. Tell us how you're feeling about congressional insertion, apparently at the directive of Joe Biden. I'm not happy about it. Dom doesn't seem too happy. How you feeling, Rick?
This was a moment for the talk to be the walk. This was a moment for Democrats to step forward and actually be the party of working people, and they failed us. Look, nobody wanted a strike. There was never going to be a strike, but the messaging that comes out of this, that we're going to run two separate bills, the one that ultimately passed and the one that was performative, was extremely predictable, and it's angering. This is the kind of stuff that I expect from Democrats when I say, look, I want a street fighter. I want somebody who's going to get in and fight for me and fight for working people. And here's another example of Democrats holding someone's coat when there's a fight. And I'm telling you, I'm ticked.
I don't want to pick out old scabs, but once upon a time, Barack Obama promised
comfortable shoes.
Wisconsin. The uprising was happening in reaction to Scott Walker's attack on public sector unions, and eventually got around to sticking it to the private sector unions. But Obama said he was going to come and march with us, stand with us, and he did not, sir. And I think a lot of locals have never forgotten, Rick.
No, look here. I'm in Georgia to talk to union members to get them out to vote for Raphael Warnock in this runoff election. All day today, all I have heard is that they feel that they've been let down. That Joe Biden, again, honestly, still the most pro-union president of my lifetime, but this was a mistake. Look, as I said, they were never going to strike. They were never going to be allowed to strike because these railroads have gotten so big. They are so powerful that shutting them down would be catastrophic for the economy. So I think the conversation we should be having is twofold. One, The strike situation isn't the employees. It's the railroad's fault. It's these extraordinarily profitable railroads. Last year, pocketing $23 billion. This year, putting in their pockets in the first 3 quarters of this year, $22.1 billion with a B. All these workers were asking for were 4 measly sick days. It would have cost $180 million. A mere fraction of their billions. And you're going to tell me that these railroads can't afford this? No, it's not that they can't afford, it's they refuse to, because this is about power, this is about control, and this is about the railroads flipping off their workers and flipping off our government, knowing that our government was going to bow to them because they have such enormous power. The call from this moment forward, Mike, should be, how do we break these railroads up and put competition back into the railroading industry?
Folks are listening to the Devil's Advocates radio show. Rick Smith joining us. Rick, you know, when you put it like that, it really makes it even sound worse. Okay, so let's get drilled down. You say there was never going to be a chance for a strike. I mean, isn't that the whole point, Rick? I mean, as a laborer, the most leverage you have is withholding your labor. What is the point of a union if you can't go on strike when the majority of people want to?
But look, Don, their hands are tied by the railroad, the Railway Labor Act. The law is what it is. They were never going to be allowed because Congress was going to step in, and they have in the past. The last time it happened was George H.W. Bush back in '91 did the exact same thing. This was predictable. But again, I come back to the untenable, the unwinnable situation that Biden was in. These railroads have so much power. These rail barons have so much influence and power over our economy. They've been gouging our eyes out. And why aren't we hearing that? We're hearing about these 4 unions who are saying, no, we want sick days. We want some dignity and respect. We want to be able to see our kids. Why is it all the focus on the union and not on these rail barons who are taking their power and abusing it? Because they know, look, I don't want there to be a strike because I know that hundreds of thousands of workers would have been affected, but I want these guys to get the sick time that they deserve and need. And this could have been a rallying cry. This could have been Biden going out there saying, look, every worker should have the dignity of a paid sick day. Every worker, and we're going to start a movement. We're going to unite both sides so that some nitwit like Marco Rubio can't step in and say, look at me, I'm pro-worker because I'm going to attack the Biden administration and the unions. This is a moment. This could have been a moment that pulled us together.
Well, Bernie Sanders voted nay on this along with Marco Rubio. So strange bedfellows. Warren Buffett apparently bought BNSF back in 2009 for $34 billion. You're going to tell me that these paid sick leave days would cost the industry $180 million, and with over the 20-some billion already this year, they can't find that in the couch cushions, and the Democrats can't push us along, if nothing else, for political reasons? You want to be a friend of labor? Let this thing play out. If you know you're never going to allow them to strike anyway, then let it. Why step in now? Why not let it run its course for at least another week?
And the thing is, you brought up Buffett. One day last week, his wealth went up enough to provide 15 sick days to all of those workers for 2 years. Just one day of his profit increases. That's how paltry their request was. They are not being unreasonable. And look, this is a winning message. Democrats could have picked this mantle up and made this a winning message to make workers' lives better. And they chose to take the route that was the simplest, that was the easiest and performative. They did what we knew they were going to do. They weren't going to allow them to strike. And then they did this, oh, hey, we're going to have this other bill, knowing that there's no way in hell the Senate's going to vote for that. And we got exactly what we expected.
And Rick, you're in Georgia. Rick Smith, the host of the Rick Smith Show, again, 8 to 10 p.m. Central Time, right here on the Civic Media Network. But Rick, you're in Georgia. You follow the circus like Dom and I sometimes do. And the timing of this exacerbates the problem because we are in the midst of a runoff election for the 51st seat of the U.S. Senate. And if Warnock loses, which seems unbelievable, but it's close. It's relatively close.
The message that I've been bringing out in this is, and people have been bringing this up to me, I go, the reality is Raphael Warnock is the 51st vote in the Senate, and he would have voted for those workers. He would have voted for those sick days. Herschel Walker, I'm not sure how Herschel Walker would have voted. I'm sure Mitch McConnell would have told him how to vote, which is against the workers. So for me, this is a very simple situation. You got Reverend Warnock, who would support the workers, and Herschel Walker, who wouldn't. But again, I keep coming back to the Democrats. There was an opportunity to play this game right. To play this chess game right, to make sure that they were able to, while they're talking the talk, walk the walk. They could have, I don't know, put that into one bill, say, yeah, we're going to make them not strike, but we're going to put those 4 sick days in there that they requested. We're going to make sure that they get what they need, Mike, and make Republicans vote that down. And then look, if it falls where it falls the day after, and then next week, you go, hey, look, we gave you the chance to vote to make sure that these folks have sick days. We didn't have 2 bills, we have 1. And that's where my frustration lies. They could have had just 1 bill.
Rick Smith, just to clarify the position of Herschel Walker, I'm pretty sure he's pro-vampire. You're listening to the Devil's Advocates Radio Show. We got Rick Smith from the Rick Smith Show. I got to lighten it up for just a moment, Rick. I understand you're feeling it, man. And I am feeling it. Dom's feeling it. I bet a lot of the actual hardworking people, similar to yourself, you're a Teamster. You're a truck driver by trade, right, Rick?
Yes.
And similar in nature to the nature of the rail workers. Am I right, or do you not see it as analogies?
No, look, I spend a lot of time driving. I drive a truck into the rail yards. That's what my job is. I go back and forth to the rail yards, and I know these guys. I know the struggles. I know their situations. I know the hours that they have to work. I know the fact that they've cut staff enormously. Thousands of workers have lost their jobs over the last several years. I know that these railroad companies, with their precision scheduling railroading, have been gouging the eyes of consumers out. I know that they've been lining their pockets. I hear these stories. I hear these people, their struggles, and they're angry. And look, I keep coming back. Democrats, you need to get out of DC. You need to get Obama's comfortable shoes on, and you need to start walking a mile in these folks' shoes. It's easy to say, oh, just take one for the team. They've been taking one for the team for the last several years. And there's real anger out there. And look, I'm calling for a wildcat strike. If it's me, I'm walking out the door. I'm not showing up on the 9th. I am not doing it.
Rick Smith, how long are you going to be in Georgia? What does your show schedule look like, and what can people expect to hear?
We're here in Georgia through the election. We're broadcasting every night, right here on all the civic media stations from 8 to 10 p.m. And, look, what we've been talking about, what I came down here to talk about was the runoff. I wanted to get people's stories, but this railroad thing has just, consumed me at this moment, because this was a moment. This was a chance for Joe Biden to solidify that most pro-union president. And I'm struggling with it right now. Now, look, I've had insiders tell me, no, Rick, calm down, cool your jets a bit. The president's got a plan. We'll see. I'm giving him the benefit of the doubt in this moment, but I'm still angry at the fact that there were 2 bills, not 1, and they went through as expected. And here we are.
Rick Smith, Dominic and I dragged him to a Trump rally, not the first one I've dragged him to, probably we're getting close to a dozen, I think. But we went to a Trump rally here in the state of Wisconsin before the primary in August. Trump came on behalf of Tim Michels. The labor, I'm sorry, Rick, I've kind of lost my thought for a moment, but we met people there, and I asked the guy, and he's like, labor, Republicans. And I'm like, how does that make sense? There's no sense to it. But apparently labor is falling in the Trump camp. The working man is falling in the MAGA camp. And I found it distressing that, this former Democratic laborer, this union guy, waiting in line, front row guy is telling me, no, man, I'm Trump or bust.
Yeah.
I guess if there's a question, it's sort of a statement, but man, Republicans are owning the working class at this.
No, the reality is Biden left an opening for Marco Rubio to step in and say that he's pro-worker. And the reality is he's never supported a piece of legislation that was pro-worker. He just hasn't. He voted against the bill, but did he vote for the one that gave the sick days? Did he propose legislation to ensure people get sick days? Did he propose any legislation to make workers' lives better? No. He simply took an opportunity to attack the president and attack unions. This isn't being pro-worker. Now, I would applaud Marco Rubio if he came forward and said, you know what, we're going to make sure every worker gets sick time. This is where the message needs to turn around. Every worker should have the dignity and respect of when they're sick, being able to stay home. When their kids get sick, they can make a doctor appointment down the road. They can have some time. The reality is unions fought for a weekend. These folks don't have one. They can't make a dental appointment 6 months into the future. This is a winning message for Democrats, and they dropped the ball on it.
Ron Johnson, senator from Wisconsin, unfortunately recently reelected, Rick, came out today and said this was the wrong action. I found myself weirdly disagreeing or agreeing with Ron Johnson in this case. But what he said is he thought effectively the president should have forced them into a cooling off period. Rick, that seemingly still would have.
They were in a cooling off period, Mike. I mean, that was what the president did over the summer. He signed the executive order creating the Presidential Emergency Board, which brought us to this point. This is the cooling off period.
So this action today was unwarranted relative to the fact that, I mean, would it have precipitated into a strike in the short run, Rick?
Look, if there's no congressional action, potentially. I mean, the reality is, and this is where the frustrating part is, the rail barons were very clear. They were not going to give anything at all. They were okay with crashing our economy. They were okay with taking the power that we've given them by allowing them to consolidate from 40 railroads down to 7 over the last 2 decades. We've given them the enormous power to crash our economy. And this is where I keep coming back to. We need to talk about having something so powerful. We've got a nuclear bomb at our feet.
4 minutes for us. Can you stick around?
Absolutely.
More Rick Smith, more Devil's Advocates. Come back with us.
He said we're going the wrong way.
That is correct.
Stories life in your local parks and forests.
Going the wrong way?
And they're closer than you think. Make the forest part of your
Now we got
story
you guys
today.
all together.
Right near you. Or find
All
them
right.
at covertheforest.org. Brought to you by the
All
United
together.
States Forest
Let you go
Service
next,
and-
Tom.
All right.
It's for the radio.
Good to see you, Rick. Thanks for coming around, man. I was
Good to see you,
thinking about
man.
you last night when I saw your tweet. I was getting a little fired up, man. So thanks for coming around.
No, I appreciate it. Yeah, anytime you guys want me, I'm here for you.
All right.
I love the work you guys do.
In Ohio and Georgia and Arizona and Michigan.
We appreciate you coming around, sir. Check out the entire podcast library at varnwi.com.
And for today's STEM tip, okay, you know recycling is important. No one wants plastic in the ocean. Here's a cool way to repurpose a plastic bottle. Build an awesome terrarium. Cut a large plastic bottle in half and fill the base with sand, pebbles, potting soil, and your favorite plant. I chose an African violet. Put the top of the bottle over your base and place it in the sun. Your plant will grow sealed in its own ecosystem. Fun, right? Learn more at She Can STEM. A message from the Ad Council.
Fear you may be missing out? We're always streaming on TuneIn and the Civic Media app. Enjoy listening live or catch up by finding the podcast at civicmedia.us or wherever you enjoy listening to your podcasts.
Here's your Devil Radio forecast. Lows level off around 28 tonight. Under mainly clear skies. Southerly winds 10 to 20 miles an hour. Daytime highs approaching 49. Tomorrow, cloudy skies. Overcast skies tomorrow night. Slight chance for scattered showers. Lows dip down to about 16. Dry and much cooler Saturday and Sunday with highs from the mid-20s to the upper 30s. For Civic Media, I'm meteorologist Eric Height. Currently, it's 33 degrees.
Malarkey. The Devil's Advocates invented malarkey.
And we are back. Thank you for listening to the Devil's Advocates radio show. Our pal Rick Smith, host of the Rick Smith Show, sticking around for one more segment. Rick, always appreciate talking to you, man. Because you're a labor guy, man, and you have the stuff dialed on. And always learn something when we hang out and when we speak. The railroad industry, as you said, is gone from 40 different rails consolidated down to 7. Is that accurate? With one of them being owned by
the numbers
Warren
that I've
Buffett.
seen. Yeah.
What's the long game here? I mean, obviously this is untenable. We all have a problem with this. How do we as consumers, how do we as citizens of a democratic government react to this and push back on this? What are your thoughts there?
Well, I mean, I would have been okay if Congress and Nancy Pelosi would have come forth with one piece of legislation, said, look, yeah, we're not going to let them strike, but we're going to get them the sick days that they need because it's the right thing to do. I would have been perfectly okay with that. And in fact, what I was hoping that they would do. They didn't. They went the performative route. They went the route that said, you're not going to be able to strike. And oh, by the way, we'll try over here, knowing that bill was never going to pass. In playing the chess game, I make the Republicans say, nope, we're not the party of working people. We're going to vote against these sick days. Because, here's the thing. These workers don't want to go on strike. None of them want to go on strike. Nobody ever wants to go on strike. I've been on strike in my lifetime. There's no fun in this. There's no good in losing wages. There's no good in causing disruption. There's no good that comes from it. But sometimes you're pushed to the brink where it's the last arrow in the quiver. It's the last thing that management's going to listen to. And what the people have been telling me is the railroads don't care, because the railroads, they don't care if they strike or not, because they can cause catastrophe, but they're going to make nothing but money on the other side because they're going to be able to gouge us. You want to know why inflation's so high? Think of shipping costs. Think of transportation costs, how crazy they've gone. And then look at the profits that these railroads have put in their pocket. $23 billion pure profit in their pocket. And they're telling these workers, sorry, you can't have a day off. It's insane. It is literally insane. And it's a winning message to go out and talk to other working people about, hey, we need to take on corporate America and this insane greed. It's that simple to me.
Rick, the rails, I mean, obviously very important. Otherwise, Congress would not have gotten involved. Otherwise, Democrats would not have gone against labor in this regard. National security issue, perhaps. Should the rails be nationalized? If this is how it's going to be, if it's so important, then should the government get more involved, in your opinion, sir?
No, absolutely. I said from the beginning that's what should happen. I mean, it's what Truman did back in the 40s. I think it's what should have happened. The threat of nationalizing, I think, would have sent the CEOs, would have sent the rail barons back to the table and actually negotiated in good faith, because there'd be a consequence. Right now, because of the RLA, there's no consequence for the rail barons if they refuse to negotiate, if they refuse to give in on what are very reasonable demands. The fact that these engineers want to have a sick day to where if they get sick, if they get COVID, they're not going to get fired from their job. This is the problem that we're in. And look, they've got paid time off, but that paid time off is always denied because, hey, we've got to have someone to cover your run. If we don't have it, you got to come in.
Rick Smith of the Rick Smith Show. You can hear him right here on the Civic Media app all across the network, 8 to 10 p.m. Central Time. Rick, we enjoyed your company this summer. You came to Wisconsin, touched different parts of the state. Right here in the Madison area, the UW nurses have been trying to organize their labor, but due in large part to Scott Walker and the Republican agenda, they don't apparently have the right to unionize. So initially, my understanding is UW Hospital was recognizing, and I'm only going on what one of our friendly rebellious nursing friends have told me on the last couple of days, but effectively now the hospital is saying, well, rules are we don't have to recognize you, so we won't, and we don't. Rick, they effectively labor's being thrown under the bus here by the existing rules. But if the nurses can't come together and say, we want to negotiate, well, how can you force their labor? I mean, effectively, do they all have to leave the UW system and go find private nursing work? You don't have the right to negotiate.
This is where I keep coming back to. I know I'm in the very, very small minority here and probably going to get into a lot of trouble for it. But at the end of the day, workers have one final arrow in their quiver, and that's the ability to fold their arms and march their feet. And I know there are some railroaders out there who are ready to go on a wildcat strike, and maybe that's what we have to come to. This country was, during the 20s and 30s, was being torn apart by workers who were demanding rights. The National Labor Relations Act was a peace treaty between workers and corporations because workers had had enough. Maybe we're at that moment again. Maybe we're in a moment where the law has gotten so outdated, so antiquated, so ossificated that it's useless at this point. That maybe we need to have comprehensive major labor law reform, something possibly like the PRO Act, which, again, bringing me back here to Georgia, is why I want Raphael Warnock to be reelected and to be put into this seat so that we can get one vote closer to the PRO Act and giving workers the ability to fight for better wages, hours, conditions by undoing all of the horrible that's been done by Republicans and conservative Democrats over the decades. But to answer your question, this is what should be drawing us together. This should be, everybody should have this right. You shouldn't give the tool that management has gotten to tell workers, yeah, maybe, no. This is where we have to vote for pro-worker candidates and hold them accountable, which is why I'm so angry with Joe Biden today.
Rick, we're going to run out of time here, man. I certainly appreciate you coming around once again. Wildcat striking. So if this goes down, I mean, what would be the effect of how many strikers would there need to be, in your opinion, given the industry? I mean, there's over 100,000 laborers in rail. How many people would need to go on a strike to make an impact?
Ultimately, the people who are affected by this, the ones that they say are just the minority, the ones who don't have sick days, those folks who are running the rails, who are the ones who are the engineers. You got a bunch of them to go out on strike. The rest of them are useless. What are you going to do? There's no trains moving around. To me, no, it's not going to happen. I doubt it's going to happen. I think you'll have some because the penalties and the fines and the draconian penalties for the unions would be just catastrophic for them because of how bad the law is on this front. But I think, at some point you may see a sick out. You may see people who are just have had enough and don't care if they get fired. I think you may see some of that.
Rick, how's the early voting seem to you?
Big numbers. I mean, they're just a drop in the drop box, 2-hour long waits in some places. But for me, the interesting part is going to be looking back at how SB 202 is working for Republicans when they pass this horrible law that says we're going to limit the number of drop boxes. We're going to shorten the runoff period from 60 days to 28. All of the things that they did to steal this election, this runoff election before it was even started. We'll see if their dirty tricks work.
Don't forget, Herschel Walker is pro-vampire.
And from Texas.
We're pro Rick Smith here. He plays out 8 to 10 p.m. each weeknight on Civic Media. Thank you, Rick. Come back, hour 2, Devil's Advocates with Charles Franklin, a pollster extraordinaire.
Thanks, Rick.
Thanks, guys.
More choices to working families.
It ain't a joke, son. Don't you get it?
He said that you were being tough on the negotiations.
Do you love getting rewards when you shop? Then shop Knucklehead CBD and vapes with the Knuckleheads Club. Every $10 spent gets you closer to 25% off. No matter what you buy, make sure you buy Knuckleheads. Stop in Saturday and Sunday and get 15% off Wellness and Wellness Plus, including Delta 8, THCP, CBD, and more, while getting points towards your next purchase. Knucklehead CBD and vapes, your one-stop smoke shop, located at 520 State Street in Madison. No matter what you buy, make sure you buy Knuckleheads.
Missed your favorite show live on air? It's easy to find what you enjoy wherever you listen to podcasts, including Spotify, Apple, and Google Podcasts. And we're always streaming on TuneIn and the Civic Media app.
Don't you wish your life came with a warning app?
That dog does not want to be petted.
Well, life doesn't always give you time to change the outcome, but prediabetes does. Take the 1-minute test today at doihaveprediabetes.org. Brought to you by the Ad Council.
You are listening to WTTN 1580 AM Columbus, W224 EG Madison, always streaming on the Devil Radio app.
AP News. I'm Ed Donahue. The Senate is moving fast to head off a potentially drastic freight rail strike.
The AP's Sagar Magani has the story.
The Senate passed a bill binding rail companies and workers to a proposed settlement reached in September. Some unions involved then rejected the deal, leading to a potential strike next week, which the Biden administration and business leaders warned could lead to massive job losses and pain around the holidays. The House voted yesterday to impose the agreement, and the bill now goes to President Biden, who hours earlier defended the settlement.
I negotiated a contract no one else could negotiate.
With pay raises, but not more paid leave. The president says he'll keep pushing to get that for rail workers and every other worker. Sagar Magani, Washington.
Earlier, after meeting with French President Emmanuel Macron, President Biden says his climate change law is not etched in stone.
There's obviously going to be glitches in it and need to reconcile changes.
The president says there's tweaks that can be made to satisfy allies. Through an interpreter, Macron said,
"We want to succeed together, not one against the other." It's been clear. This is the outcome of our discussions this morning, and this is exactly the philosophy that I share, and it is the one that we need.
President Biden is hosting a state dinner tonight for Macron at the White House. The Supreme Court agreed to decide whether the Biden administration can broadly cancel student loan debt, keeping the program blocked for now, but signaling a final answer by early summer. A judge in Arizona ordered Cochise County officials to certify the midterm election results by the end of the day today, saying Republican supervisors broke the law when they refused to.
Mr. Franklin, how are you?
Hey, how you doing?
I'm doing well, thank you. Thanks for joining us.
Excellent. Always fun to be here.
It is, isn't it? All right, we got 4 minutes to showtime.
All righty.
Field cell.
My dog smelled and scratched constantly. We bathed and sprayed her, took her to the vet, but no results. Now, a little Dynovite in her food helps Bella keep her beautiful coat with no scratching or smell.
Get 10% off your next order of Dynovite nutritional supplements for dogs at dynovite.com. Happier, healthier with every bite. Over 1 million pets helped with Dynovites.
Looking for the perfect gift? Get him a shirt from Untuck It. Untuck It shirts are designed to be worn untucked. They're the easiest way to keep him looking sharp and feeling comfortable. You can't go wrong with their super soft flannels, wrinkle-free shirts, performance shirts with stretch, and cozy sweaters that are all perfect for right now. They even have a line for her. Find the perfect gift for every guy on your list at one of 80+ Untuck It stores or at untuckit.com. Untuck It, shirts designed to be worn.
Hey folks, Stephanie Miller here. As an enlightened progressive, you know how important it is to do business in accordance with your politics. That's why Solidarity Realty is my favorite real estate firm in Madison. Solidarity Realty is a local independent realty company that lives their values. They provide outstanding expertise and protect your best interests while building community and promoting sustainability and diversity. Viva la resistance! Find them today at solidarityrealty.com. And don't forget, tell them Stephanie Miller sent you.
Hi, this is Brad from Zero Res. If you need someone to help with your carpet cleaning, business or residence, please give us a call. We have the best system available and an amazing team of friendly technicians. Call us at 848-9000 or schedule online at zeroresmadison.com.
Do you want Wisconsin to suck? I don't. That's why you're listening to me now. I'm Hawk, owner of the Atomic Koi. Come to the Koi and tell them you're there because the devil sent you. Then I can spend more money on ads and help Devil Radio keep Wisconsin from spiraling into post-apocalyptic Republican suckage. I mean, that's Iowa's job. Buy a round of the Atomic Koi and save Wisconsin one drink at a time.
Suck down drinks so we don't have to suck.
Okay.
You wanted information as election results rolled in, and the Civic Media network of radio stations delivered it live.
I was so impressed with your coverage. And I listened to you guys, and I got all the coverage. It was amazing.
Civic Media, the only network with news reporters and show hosts stationed across Wisconsin, sharing political insight not found anywhere else. Elections or anytime, we are here for you, your local Civic Media radio stations, and streaming on the Civic Media app.
For Civic Media, I'm Jane Matnair with your headlines. The Wisconsin Election Commission has agreed to postpone a massive data request for statewide voter registration lists, including contact information, until it's decided who will be the Republican chair of the Assembly Elections Committee this month. The current chair, Representative Janelle Brandtjen, initially requested 20 years of data in January. This is a limited version of that request. The WEC estimates it will cost over $49,000 and take close to 2 weeks to fulfill that request. Brandtjen expelled from the closed GOP caucus in November after her colleagues said they couldn't trust her. It's unlikely that Assembly Speaker Robin Vos will reappoint her as committee chair. The information will likely still be of interest. A Marquette poll showed that 60% of Republicans surveyed are either not too confident or not confident at all in the results of the 2020 election. You're listening to Devil Radio, 92.7 FM, WTTN, 1580 AM.
Devil Radio programming is produced live in the Solidarity Realty Studios. Find them at solidarityrealty.com. Solidarity Realty. There is a
Warning, you are about to listen to the greatest radio show ever. And due to contractual obligations and to shield our airwaves and corporate licensees from any semblance of liability, responsibility, and gullibility, we must tell you the views represented on this show are not necessarily those of this station or its management. This radio show contains differing points of view on current political topics, and due to the nature of its contents, it should be heard by everyone. Thank you for listening. Now live from the Devil Radio Studios in Madison, Wisconsin, where the political party is just beginning. Welcome to the Devil's Advocate Show. Friends proving it's never personal, only politics.
Please allow me to introduce myself.
Here is your host, Mike Crute.
Welcome to the Devil's Advocates Radio Show, the Thursday edition, the Happier Happy Hour. Dom, we got a fine guest joining us right from the top. He is Charles Franklin, pollster extraordinaire, our friend. Charles, welcome back, man.
Good to be here.
Thank you, Charles.
National polling the occasion, Charles, and presidential. We've already got a candidate declared, Donald Trump. And Ron DeSantis also polled. Charles, let's start with the big horse race. You know, it's never too early. How do you see the presidential contenders on the Republican side, sir?
Yeah, let me say the reason we do them this far out is not because this is the way the race is going to turn out. But in 2 years, we look back and we say, how did we get here? This is the way we know how we get there. It's history as it happens. And so, you know, please, folks, don't take this as predictions, but how things are changing and how the race is shaping up and within the parties. That's the reason we're doing this. Now, to answer your question, Ron DeSantis has been gaining steadily but slowly over the course of the year. And in this latest poll is tied with Joe Biden, 42% to 42%, with 14% saying they'd either like someone else or wouldn't vote in that race. But that's particularly important in comparison to Donald Trump, who is trailing Biden 34 to 44. And that race, Biden has pulled a little bit further ahead over the last few months. In March, Biden led by 5 over Trump. Now he leads by 10 over Trump. So you can see here the shifting of the balance with Trump slipping a little further behind DeSantis, who many people still aren't familiar with, moving in and catching up to Biden as of now.
You know what, though? He reminds me, DeSantis, in some twisted way, of Gubernator Scott Walker from the great state of Wisconsin. Because, of course, Scott Walker in his 2014 reelection campaign had every indication except actually saying the fact, reelect me so I could run for president. Well, DeSantis is about to drop the autobiography. And, you know, Scott Walker had his Unintimidated book. But here's my thought. He could very much turn out to be a Scott Walker. Scott Walker was the top of the heap early in the polling. Do you remember those days when Scott Walker was something of a big thing?
I sure do. It lasted from roughly January until September. And the thing is, you're hearing a lot of these comparisons. Is DeSantis the Scott Walker this year? Is he the Jeb Bush of 2016 a little later? I think there's a lot to that. At this stage, we don't know how well DeSantis will hold up. Sorry.
Charles, looking at the data here, while Santos certainly has gained ground when compared as a matchup against Biden, back in January, it was 34 DeSantis, 43 Biden, as mentioned, now tied up at 42 each. But Trump's been flat, man. Back in November of last year, 35 Trump, Biden 43, and now right now 34 Trump, Biden 44. So, I mean, certainly Trump is not gaining any ground whatsoever. I mean, that seems pretty consistent.
No, I think that's right. Trump gained some ground in the summer when he tightened it up in March. It was a 5-point race, but he's slipped since then. And I think that's the important thing to watch in these numbers is how have they trended over the summer and fall? You see a little bit of rise for Trump in the summertime in his favorabilities as well as his vote, but he's been slipping a bit since then and slipping even with Republican voters, which is maybe the more important thing at this stage of the process is, does he in fact look vulnerable, or is he the guy that's been written off too many times?
He's been written off too many times because he hasn't even started whacking at DeSantis. You wait, he's going after DeSantis. It's going to be a lot of fun to watch, for political junkies like us. But you know who's going to wilter also? Mike Pence. Mike Pence, I see you polled on him, and even amongst Republicans, he's barely above water on favorable, unfavorable. Some still want to hang the guy, don't they, Charles?
Well, I'm not sure if it's quite that bad, but certainly he's not surging with Republican voters. 51-40 on favorability for Pence. Not nearly as strong as DeSantis, nor as strong as Trump, for that matter, with GOP voters.
I'm sorry, I didn't look ahead. Did you guys do any polling on the Georgia race? I hear Herschel Walker is pro-vampire in that race.
Well, depending on how you feel about vampires, I'm not sure if that's an endorsement or not an endorsement. Alas, we did not poll on Georgia.
Charles, the some of the data from summertime. I mean, obviously, when I look at this, I see Trump kind of falling in some of these different charts after summer. Of course, we had these congressional hearings. Does that, you think that played a role in Trump's declining numbers since the summer?
I think what we see is that Trump has this base in the party that some people call the always Trump faction of the GOP, 30 to 40%, I think most people put it. In our sample, it looks like maybe that's about 40% of Republican voters. But what Trump may slip with are the maybe Trump voters in the party, the folks that may have voted for him twice, but are now saying maybe it's time to move on, or maybe they are saying I can get Trump without the baggage from some other Republican candidate, or even, hey, he was great, I loved him, but it's time to move on and elect somebody that can be in office for 2 terms. You're hearing all that kind of story from Republicans that are offering an alternative to Trump without rejecting Trump outright.
Isn't that also how the minions pick? Other issues, Charles. I'm having a little fun with you, my friend. Issues that are on the top of the mind of voters in 2023. Some of these issues, I'm really surprised by the percentages of support. Things like the limit the cost of prescription drugs seems logical, but when you see 92% of Americans favor something, seems like you should get it done. Passing a new voting rights law to protect every citizen's right to vote, 84%, increase federal aid to states and school districts to increase teacher compensation, 78%. There are some very popular thought processes. A lot of people are coming together. Will any way Congress could deliver on these aspirational dreams, Charles?
Well, I think one of the really interesting things is limiting the cost of prescription drugs is near the top with Republicans, not just near the top with Democrats and independents. So I think that's a fruitful area for further legislation on drug prices that I mean, granted, in the new Congress with the Republican control of the House, it's going to be unlikely to pass much legislation. But on that one, and also on a voting rights bill, that ranks in the top half with Republicans. Now, what people think about what the content of that bill might be could differ. And I actually think the bottom of the list is really surprising. Require Congress to reauthorize Social Security and Medicare every 5 years is dead last with Republicans, even though you heard some Republicans suggest that we should take a look at Social Security and Medicare every year. So that's sort of a stunning surprise.
Certainly dead last in the extensive list that you have here that you polled on, but still, even as such, 40% of Republicans are still down with that idea, even though it's last on the list.
No, that's true. But relative to the other priorities, way down. And of course, not surprisingly, it's at the bottom with Democrats and nearly the bottom with Republicans. Independent. Sorry.
What about impeaching Joe Biden? Because it doesn't seem like much of an issue near the bottom, but
not really much. Moves up with Republicans in the top half, but boy, it's not really the independent agenda, let alone the Democratic agenda. But you talk about who is being appealed to when Congress people on both sides pick these issues up and talk about them, whether they're going to pass or not. And I think what you're seeing here is that the sort of big symbolic issue of impeach Joe Biden for Republicans is very limited in who it appeals to.
Well, it's still 67% of them, Charles. And I would point out, anyone that watches Fox News knows the biggest issue on Fox News is, porous borders, open borders, Joe Biden, all that kind of stuff. 94% of Republicans increase efforts to stop illegal immigration along the southern border. That's their number one issue by far.
Yep. And we saw this in Wisconsin in our polling here throughout the year, that the issue agendas of the two parties were really like night and day. Here, mostly they're like night and day, but prescription drugs just sort of leaps out at you as an exception to that.
Charles Franklin, Marquette University Law School polling, just a couple of minutes left in this segment. The elections, obviously, lots of still fighting going on in Arizona over the elections. You polled on the topic. What are you hearing?
Yeah, well, the main thing is that there's less doubt about this year's elections than there are still about the 2020 election. That doesn't mean that everybody accepts the election results. Among Republicans, we still get 49% that say they have some doubts about this year's election. But that's a lot better than the 60-something% that we get about 2020. So the point is not that we've restored confidence in elections across the board, but it's moved better with independents and with Democrats, and even a bit better with Republicans. But still, half of Republicans are not too confident or not at all confident in the outcome. So long-term damage, but some improvement this year compared to 2020.
Couple of the former presidents, Charles, Obama, Bush, how are they seen by the American people in retrospect?
Yeah, I thought it was kind of nice to look at those former guys. Obama, 62% favorable, Bush, 51% favorable, both looking pretty good compared to contemporary politicians.
Well, that's only attributable to Michelle Obama giving them a hug. Charles, I'd give you a hug if you were a little closer. Thanks for joining us today, sir, and bringing
Thanks so much. Take care, guys.
Thanks, Charles.
Come back, more Devils. Phone calls next. Call us.
Tom has been a teacher for over 40 years. One day, I think one of the students had asked the question and he didn't remember the answer. And I also noticed that he was letting his class out earlier than they were supposed to let out. I was really starting to worry.
Levi and I talked about how it would change our lives, but he was there beside me.
When something feels different, it could be Alzheimer's. Now is the time to talk. Visit alz.org/ourstories to learn more. A message from the Alzheimer's Association and the Ad Council.
The Devil's Advocates, because freedom.
But Dom, we've been following a couple of big stories this week. Truck convoy leader has no idea where he is and is driving in circles around I-495. He didn't know precisely where he was going anyways or where he was at the time. Apparently, he put the convoy back on the road, headed back up north, and he's back in Scranton. So
I totally would have protested this tyranny, but damn, the traffic was so bad.
Follow the Devil's Advocates on Facebook and Twitter.
Uh-oh, Brad's buzzed. Oh, yeah? Yeah, he's starting with the woots. Good thing is, he knows when he's buzzed.
Know your buzzed warning signs? Call for a ride when it's time to go home. Buzz driving is drunk driving. A message from NHTSA and the Ad Council.
You are listening to your local Civic Media radio station on air. Thank you. Did you know we are always streaming on TuneIn and the Civic Media app too? And if you miss a show or game, find it wherever you get your podcasts or on our website, civicmedia.us.
Here's your Devil Radio forecast. Lows level off around 28 tonight under mainly clear skies. Southerly winds 10 to 20 miles an hour. Daytime highs approaching 49. Tomorrow, cloudy skies, overcast skies tomorrow night, slight chance for scattered showers, lows dip down to about 16. Dry and much cooler Saturday and Sunday with highs from the mid-20s to the upper 30s. For Civic Media, I'm meteorologist Eric Height. Currently, it's 32 degrees.
The Devil's Advocates. So relevant, they have 1 foot in tomorrow.
welcome back to the Devil's Advocates radio show. Even though it's Dom's turn to go, I guess I'll do all the heavy lifting.
Oh, damn it.
Our most recent fine guest, Charles Franklin. What a fine one. Always appreciate when the pollster extraordinaire from the Marquette University Law School poll comes around on the Devil's Advocates. Also, thank you, Rick Smith, back in hour number 1. And don't forget, if you miss any of the fine interviews, we podcast them at the civicmedia.us. You can find the Devil's Advocates every episode since we started putting it on the Civic Media app.
So the greatest hits you're going to have to dig up somewhere else. Crew, we got some breaking news. You can join us on the lines at 844-967-2789. Sorry about that, buddy. I'm going to throw this out there quick. Washington Post reporting a federal appeals court panel on Thursday halted an outside review of thousands of documents seized from former President Donald Trump's Florida residence, ruling that a lower court judge was wrong to appoint an expert to decide whether any of the materials should be shielded from criminal investigators. Trump sought the outside arbiter, known as a special master, after the FBI executed a court-approved search on his Mar-a-Lago home, or as he puts it, a raid, right? The U.S. District Judge Eileen Cannon of Florida agreed months ago to appoint Raymond Deary, Judge Brooklyn, as a special master to review the documents, rejecting the Justice Department's argument that presidents do not retain executive privileges after leaving office. Cannon also noted that the FBI took some of Trump's personal materials that were mixed in with the government documents. But the special master appointments are rare, and judges at the U.S. Court of Appeals for the 11th Circuit expressed concern at oral arguments that Cannon's decision was a troubling precedent, allowing the target of a search warrant to go into court and request a special master that could interfere with an executive branch investigation before an indictment ever is issued. The judges did not back down from that stance in their written opinion on Thursday, saying they could not issue an order that would allow any subject of a search warrant to block government investigations after the execution of the warrant, nor can we write a rule that allows only former presidents to do so. The Thursday opinion read, either approach would be a radical reordering of our case law limiting the federal court's involvement in criminal investigations, and both would violate bedrock separations of powers limitations. But, don't bother Trump's appointed judge. Of course we knew that. She knew that. She did judge Trump's bidding anyway, and the appeals court slapped that down, like Trump's court's lawsuits have been getting slapped down for months. And so now hopefully maybe a Trump indictment on the paper crimes coming sooner than later?
At least visually, momentarily, Eileen Cannon, the newly chastised judge, the Trump supportive, doesn't she remind you just a little bit of that newly declared Wisconsin Supreme Court justice?
Oh, right. Yes. There's
a little resemblance.
Little physical resemblance there. In the opinion, the judges rebuked a central part of the argument by Trump's legal team that the Presidential Records Act allowed Trump to categorize presidential documents as personal ones, creating the need for a special master to determine whether personal documents should be shielded from investigators. While conceding that the search of a former president's property is indeed extraordinary, the judges said that fact would not affect our legal analysis. Ultimately, the judges said that the status of the documents as personal or presidential should not determine whether a special master is needed. The warrant for the search, the opinion said, was properly approved by a judge. Whether Trump was lawfully in possession of the seized documents could be assessed in future legal proceedings. The magistrate judge decided that issue when approving the warrant to the extent that the categorization of these documents has legal relevance in future proceedings. The issue can be raised at that time. All these arguments are sideshow. I mean, I think it's coming down now. I mean, now there's no reason, right? They have everything. I think it's going to start speeding up, Crudy. But yeah, apparently Crudy, you still think Trump's going to be the Republicans' candidate in 2024?
Yes. Until the indictments have rung down upon him and he's sitting in jail. It did turn the page, at least on the Nick Fuentes turkey turducken, didn't it, Dom? At least for a moment. I saw that Kanye went out and did a little appearance, Dom, on Alex Jones' show. And in a strange turn of fate, Alex Jones today, for perhaps the first time in the history of his existence, he was sort of the voice of reason.
You know what? We are in a special hell when Alex Jones becomes the voice of reason.
On Thursday, the Republican Jewish Coalition came out with a statement tearing into InfoWars radio segment between conspiracy theorist webcaster Alex Jones, in this case, the sane one, and rapper Kanye West, the white nationalist live and there's more, Dom, and white nationalist live streamer Nick Fuentes, all of whom have taken meetings with the former President Donald Trump. You know, when your claim to fame is you're a white nationalist live streamer, I mean, you're basically Ian O'Donnell.
I mean, he's a podcaster. I mean, didn't Marjorie Taylor Greene go to one of his little events? So, I mean, this white nationalism stench runs entirely through the mega GOP.
Here's a little quote, Tom. Today's InfoWars show featuring Alex Jones, Nick Fuentes, and Kanye West, a disgusting triumvirate of conspiracy theorists, Holocaust deniers, and anti-Semites, was a horrific cesspool of dangerous, bigoted Jew hatred, said the RJC statement. We vehemently condemn those comments and call on all political leaders to reject these messages of hate and relegate them to the dustbin of history where they belong. But Don, we haven't told anyone yet what Ye said. Do you want to break it?
I don't have it in front of me, but Ye basically said Kanye, the artist formerly known as Kanye, while on the crazy ass Alex Jones show, wearing some sort of mask, like a. It was hard to determine. It looked kind of like the Gimp, from Pulp Fiction, like one of those. It didn't have a zipper on the mouth, but you couldn't see him. It was just weird, and literally said, I like Hitler. He was like very complimentary of Hitler. And Alex Jones was like, no, dude, I know you're a designer and I know you like the outfits, but you don't really like, oh, no, Kanye. I like Hitler. Yeah. What?
Technically, Dom, the quote was, I see good things about Hitler and not just the wardrobe. Come back. Or devil's advocates.
Hugo Boss.
President Trump, where is your leadership?
In prison.
Here's how you get them. If they bring a beer, you bring an old-fashioned. If they bring cheese curds, you bring a casserole. That's how you make friends. That's the Wisconsin way. That's Devil Radio.
At Chad's Design Build, we care deeply about the quality of the services that we provide to our clients. An excellent remodeling experience requires communication, honesty, accuracy, and a detailed plan, all of which helps to create a satisfied client. And these commitments spell our name. To learn more about the Chad's remodeling experience, go to chadsdesignbuild.com. Building a better world, one remodeled home at a time, and celebrating 30 years of excellence.
Salvatore's Tomato Pies, home of Madison's best farm-to-table pizza, is hiring. We are seeking line cooks, prep cooks, dishwashers, pizza makers, bartenders, servers, delivery drivers, and hosts. Sal's offers great pay, free shift meals, pay time off, and health insurance available for those working 30 hours a week. Students are welcome too. Positions available at all locations, Madison, Monona, and Sun Prairie. Stop into any location for an immediate interview or apply online at Salvatore's Tomato.
I'm Ben Thomas with an AP News Minute. President Biden is hosting a state dinner tonight for French President Emmanuel Macron. In an Oval Office meeting, the two vowed to maintain a united front against Russia and its war in Ukraine.
We want to fix the direct and indirect consequences of the war on our economies and our people.
It's really important we stay in close communication. Doesn't mean that every single solitary thing we agree on.
Biden also signaled the willingness to tweak aspects of his signature climate legislation that have raised concerns with France and other European allies. The Supreme Court says the Biden administration program to cancel student loans will remain blocked for now, but the justices will take up the case in late winter. At the World Cup, Japan beat Spain 2-1, but both teams advance, eliminating Germany despite its 4-2 win over Costa Rica. A scoreless draw sees Croatia advance, Belgium eliminated, and Morocco advances with a 2-1 win over Canada. I'm Ben Thomas.
We tried Dynavite for gut health and immune support, and after a couple of weeks, our little Gizmo was acting like a puppy again. His coat was shinier, he had a lot less scratching and shedding, and he seemed like his happy old self.
My dog smelled and scratched constantly. We bathed and sprayed her, took her to the vet, but no results. Now, a little Dynavite in her food helps Bella keep her beautiful coat with no scratching or smell.
Get 10% off your next order of Dynavite nutritional supplements for dogs at Dynavite.com. Happier, healthier with every bite. Over 1 million pets helped with Dynavite.
Looking for the perfect gift? Get them a shirt from Untuck It. Untuck It shirts are designed to be worn untucked. They're the easiest way to keep him looking sharp and feeling comfortable. You can't go wrong with their super soft flannels, wrinkle-free shirts, performance shirts with stretch, and cozy sweaters that are all perfect for right now. They even have a line for her. Find the perfect gift for every guy on your list at one of 80+ Untuck It stores or at untuckit.com. Untuck It, shirts designed to be.
This is Pat Kreitlow from Up North News Radio. We have frequently visited with Dr. Kristen Lyerly, an OBGYN, about women's health issues, especially the rights that were ripped away by politicians this year. Now we're going to expand Kristen's house calls via the radio to more healthcare topics, and we'd like your help.
I want to focus on the community health piece. So what's happening in your community that directly affects your health? Like, for example, do you live in a place where EMS services are languishing because they're underfunded? Or is your water safe to drink? Our audience members call in and write in and say, this is what I'm experiencing, or this is something that I don't understand, or this is a problem that I think we need to solve.
We'll be talking hometown health every Thursday morning at 7:30 here on the Civic Media Radio Network. We'll be taking your phone calls, and you can send us your healthcare system related questions to radio@upnorthnewswi.com.
Think you know politics? Think again. Welcome to the Devil's Advocates.
And we are back. Thank you for listening to the Devil's Advocates radio show. Got to get mine back. 844-967-2789. Join us on the phones. Crudy, I can't believe we're talking about Ye and Alex Jones, man. But, yeah, go ahead.
You know what you remind me of there? Right there. Kanye West stealing Taylor Swift's Grammy. Thunder. That you are Kanye in this.
Come on, man. I gave it up before. I'm just taking it back. Raw Story reporting. After leaving it up for almost 2 months, the House Judiciary, GOP's official Twitter account, has finally deleted their infamous tweet that read simply, Kanye, Elon, Trump. Now, why the GOP House Judiciary Committee would tweet that, I'm curious. But here's what they go on to say at Raw Story.
Culture.
The tweet went up on October 6th, and soon afterwards, rapper Kanye West started giving interviews and making statements that are unquestionably anti-Semitic. While both liberal and conservative figures called on the House Judiciary GOP to disavow the tweet as West's anti-Semitism reached a fever pitch, the tweet was not deleted. But now that West has gone on InfoWars and blatantly told Alex Jones, I like Hitler, the people behind the account have apparently decided it was time to take it down. You're not Hitler, Jones told West. You're not a Nazi. Well, I see good things about Hitler, West said, later adding, every human being has value that they just brought to the table, especially Hitler. The Nazis did good things too, West said. We've got to stop dissing the Nazis all the time.
Oh, what's the Obama statement? How hard is it just to
say Nazis are bad?
Jesus Christ, man. You know what I'm saying? I don't mean to be profane for our Christian friends. Come on, man.
Saying that Nazis are bad.
Yes. Thank you, Barack Obama.
What's going on, man? I mean, for real. The House Judiciary Committee Twitter account? Kanye, Elon, Trump? What kind of sick ass cult Kool-Aid drinking mess are you people into? What is it about? What about those folks, man? Tell me. I'd really like to know. 844-967-2789. Are you down with the Alex Jones? Are you down with the Kanye West? Yay? Are you down with Nick Fuentes hanging out with your 2024 GOP lead right now, Donald Trump, chilling? Now, Curdy, I also did see that after that little pre-Thanksgiving Day soiree that Trump hosted Kanye West and Nick Fuentes, they came out later and said they were just trolling the dude.
I did also see that.
Yeah, Kanye West brought Nick Fuentes, the white nationalist, the guy who wants to make a Christian Taliban here, who wants to make a good dictatorship here. And the kid's young too, right? And the guy looks like he's 12, but nevertheless, obviously he has the president's ear. But they went down to troll Trump to make him look bad. I mean, I don't know, man. I mean, if this guy's your 2024 lead, and the GOP's in disarray.
Well, that goes without saying. 844-967-2789. Dom, a couple of local updates from right here in our backyard, great state of Wisconsin. The 8th Senate District vacated today by Alberta Darling. She resigned effective today being the first day of December, Dom. And we've got our first GOP candidate for the opening.
Oh, there's an announcement. This is my Senate district. This is the district in which I live here in the great state of Wisconsin.
Well, that's why I'm bringing it to yours.
And who is it? Dan Knodel.
It is Knodel.
Yeah, I figured.
Knodel launched his bid for the 8th Senate District, making him the first candidate to get in the race for the seat being vacated today by Alberta Darling. Knodel of Germantown said he's running to support law enforcement, expand educational opportunities, that means to voucher schools, and pursue additional tax changes. That means a flattening, a regressing of the tax codes for the benefit of rich people. What a great policy. A
tax hike on everybody else, but the rich still get a tax break. That makes total sense for a Republican candidate. I fully expect him to, advocate for that. Who's anybody saying who's a Dem candidate? Anybody step in yet?
Not yet that I'm aware of. But a statement from Knodel as he jumps in. He's in it to win it. No, here's what he said. When I entered office, Wisconsin was unable to control its spending, despite being one of the highest tax states in the country. With bold conservative reforms, $50 billion deficits into unprecedented surpluses while providing tax relief for every single Wisconsin family homeowner and small business. Darling's resignation takes effect at the end of the day today. Probably done.
Done. Yeah, it's after 5.
Governor Tony Evers hasn't yet announced his plans for calling a special election to fill the strongly GOP seat. And one other potential candidate, GOP State Rep Janelle Branchen.
Run, Janelle, run.
Is accusing the Elections Commission of breaking the law after it voted to delay turning over information she's been seeking on the state voter rolls. Branchen, in her current role, maybe short-term role, as chair of the Campaign and Elections Committee, has been seeking the information about a year. During yesterday's meeting, the commission voted unanimously to approach the elections and campaign committee chair for the 23-24 session to see if the request was still valid. Something else I noted yesterday, our pal Robin Voss, the Republican Speaker of the Assembly, a couple times he's been on the show. He was the very final person to give testimony to the January 6th committee.
Oh, really?
Robin Voss was the cherry. He was the final one. After Robin Voss's testimony, that was the very last witness that the January 6th committee has scheduled. Apparently, they're turning to writing the report. Last witness, last in, first out, right? Because by the end of the year, reportedly, they're going to issue a written report with all of the evidence presented. And I hope it has crosstabs, because I'm gonna tab for Robin Voss. And then I'm probably going to cross-tab Ron Johnson, because they also made a point. The January 6th committee made a point of bringing Ron Johnson. He was the first senator named specifically, right?
Yes. Yeah.
A lot of the attention for the American people, and I think some of that at the need, because the American people have a relatively brief attention span. A lot of the attention was pretty focused on, let's say, Trump and certain circles and what happened. But the sort of ancillary stuff, who funded it, and which members of Congress should be facing criminal referrals to the Department of Justice, all that kind of stuff. That's what I want to see, Don. And it could all come by what? Christmas, New Year's? It's going to be a happy holiday all the same.
lots of reading from the J6. 844-967-2789.
I'm going to let Jim Santel do the reading, and I'm going to look for the book report. I'll come in Saturday mornings for morning cannolis, and we'll invite him on.
We'll cheat off his paper. Wisco Paul, you are up. Welcome. Happy Friday Eve. Paulie, what do you got for us?
Hey, Paul.
Yeah, same to you guys. Hey. Tom, you live in that district of Darlings. It's a pretty important district, because if the Democrats could somehow capture it, they wouldn't. The Senate couldn't impeach and do this other crazy stuff.
Yeah.
So does the Democrat even have a chance in that gerrymandered district? That's my question.
I mean, there's a chance. I mean, I would think, Paul, I mean, certainly it's an underdog, right? Maybe 45, 55, something like that. But there's always a chance, man. I mean, it's within range. Let's put it that way.
I believe it's a 6-point Republican lean district. But when you talk about a spring election, this isn't motivated by here's what motivates the vote this spring. The balance of the Wisconsin Supreme Court. So an informed electorate should go and cast their vote in April. So it's really about who informs their side, the importance of what's coming up. The secondary, probably the alignment of the special election with the spring election, the primary being in February, I believe around the 18th, and then the actual general being in April. Dom, the court will turn people out, but it's not going to be like a fall election. It's not going to have a midterm turnout. It's not going to have a presidential turnout. And quite frankly, anything can happen in a special.
Yeah. Yes.
That's why they're special. Just ask Patty Schachner in the 10th, right? Patty won the 10th in the special.
And she lost then in the next round, right? But I get that, man. And I'm
different dynamics depending on
lots of different dynamics, no doubt. But that's why you played the game, right? And so I'm very much looking forward to see who on the Democratic side is going to step up and make this fight, because we can't let this one just sit.
I'm going to start recruiting candidates. I'm going to start daring people to run. That or streak the quad, one or the other, man.
Maybe both.
844-967-2789. Dom, I got to get back to a guy, but I think we've got permission to broadcast the Badger volleyball on the Civic Media Network on the respective Badger station. So I'm going to do a little math tonight. I'm going to make sure that we can clear the decks for that we're not blowing off some other thing. But the Badgers are going into the NCAA tournament. I believe tomorrow night's the first game. and they're the returning national champions.
Wow, nice.
I know someone said to me earlier this year, UW is really a volleyball school, and it's kind of true.
Yeah, it is.
So we will broadcast that if we're able, and I'm pretty sure we are. I just got to do some math and make sure I'm not crushing my engineers in any way, shape, or form.
Again.
Before they crush me, right? Because that wouldn't be good for the holidays, Tom. I don't want to be crushed.
Thompson saying on NBC News is reporting that the J6 committee will release transcript of interviews along with the report. It's expected before Christmas. And they're going to meet on Friday on potential criminal recommendations to the Department of Justice. MSNBC is reporting right now. So we're going to, come the holidays, man, get your crazy uncle together. You get to review some of the transcripts and the interviews and the report. It should be fascinating.
Dominic, here's the real thing I'm waiting for. Somebody hurry up and leak the Trump taxes. Somebody's going to in the poorest house. I mean, the House, when the caucus gets a crack at the taxes, and my understanding, maybe the individual members of the caucus aren't going to be able to see the Trump taxes, but the Democratic caucus is going to get a crack at the Trump taxes. And I'm pretty sure they're going to set them aside for posterity for the American people in some way, shape, or form.
It'll get left on the cabinet.
Even if you got to do the Samuel Alito leak method. Hey, why haven't we gotten to the bottom of the Supreme Court leak? Is it because it's Samuel Alito?
It's a great question, Michael.
I suspect.
And what about Ginny Thomas? What's up with that? I mean, how long? What was her role? And is there going to be any other investigation into that? I mean, Roberts, are you okay with all this? I mean, I'd like to hear. People want to know.
Here is what the Supreme Court did decide today, Dom, to continue to stay Biden's student loan forgiveness program for the holidays. So we've been on the E-Bone watch. E-Bone is forgiveness eligible as a guy with some student loan debt. He's got his fingers crossed in the control booth. The Supreme Court says Biden's student loan forgiveness program remains blocked for now, like cheese in the colon, Dom. But they did schedule arguments for February. So tell you what, E-Bone by next June-ish.
Oh, I can't wait. It's gonna be glorious.
You might find out.
But the good news is, in the meantime, you're not collecting the VIG. There's stops on all that right now. So good. A little break for some of us. I mean, the Republicans are fine with the trillions of dollars in tax breaks for the very wealthy. I mean, we can certainly do a little bit for our fellow citizens. Called an overdue investment in education.
As long as it's not an organized labor, right?
No, well, of course not. I mean, only if it's really, really expensive, and then you got to do what you got to do.
Come back with us, Devil's Advocates. One last segment for your phone calls. Dial us up, 844-967-2789.
Look through your children's eyes, and you will discover the true magic of a forest.
Find a forest near you and start exploring at discovertheforest.org. Brought to you by the United States Forest Service and the Ad Council.
Warning, listening to the Devil's Advocates may expose you to opposing views.
We've mentioned, inflation is going to be an issue. Let me ask you this. What would you like to see Donald Trump do if you were here? What did you suggest Biden do to address the inflationary pressures we're facing right now?
Well, I can't tell you that because that would be something you could counter and defeat Trump with, or the Republican Party. So tell you.
You think Trump's taking strategy from you on talk radio, Lou?
I mean, you're no Kid Rock, Lou.
Follow the Devil's Advocates on Facebook and Twitter.
Ready for our little forest adventure?
Yes.
We're here.
That was.
There's a forest closer than you think. Find a park or forest near you and music inspired by nature. DiscoverTheForest.org. Brought to you by USDA Forest Service and the Ad Council.
It's easy to listen to your favorite local radio station anytime. Download the Civic Media app from the Apple or Google Play Store, then listen live or whenever you want from anywhere for free.
Here's your Devil Radio forecast. Lows level off around 28 tonight under mainly clear skies. Southerly winds 10 to 20 miles an hour. Daytime highs approaching 49. Tomorrow, cloudy skies. Overcast skies tomorrow night. Slight chance for scattered showers. Lows dip down to about 16. Dry and much cooler Saturday and Sunday with highs from the mid-20s to the upper 30s. For Civic Media, I'm meteorologist Eric Height. Currently, it's 32 degrees.
I don't know if you know the Devil's Advocates, but the show is kind of a big deal.
And we are back. Thank you for listening to the Devil's Advocates radio show, the last segment of this Friday Eve. So if you got something to say, call us right now, 844-967-2789.
Dominic, I bet you Donald Trump is gloating at this very moment. CNN's bringing down the hammer, firing people right now. Daily Beast reporting a day after CNN chief Chris Light informed network staff that layoffs were incoming, the hammer came down. Variety was the first to report that a number of notable correspondents and production staff were given pink slips on Thursday, including polarizing political reporter and editor-at-large Chris Cillizza. He's a free agent, could take your job. Although I was never a fan.
No, Chris, he's fine, good enough. I mean, someone's got to do it.
Here's how the journalist at the Daily Beast describes it. Besides Cillizza, who is known for his simplistic both sides punditry, don't let the door hit you in the ass on the way out, right? Nothing like a warm goodbye. CNN also parted ways with correspondent Ellison Kosick, Alexandria Field, and Martin Savage, as well as Marianne Fox, the VP of Northeast News. Furthermore, CNN will end all live programming on sister network Headline News, resulting in the cancellation of the long-running morning program Morning Express. The show's anchor, Robin Meade, who has been at the network since 2001, and other fill-in hosts will also lose their jobs. So everybody's getting canned over at the CNN. They probably want Trump desperately to run again, right? I mean,
given if we look back at what happened in 2016, I mean, don't all media companies want Trump to run again? I mean, they make money by eyeballs and clicks, right? That's how they do it. So controversy and that crap show, yeah, they'll be happy to put that on the screens every single day.
You know, Iowa caucuses are probably going to happen for the Republicans, but my understanding, next day or two, the Democrats are going to throw Iowa overboard. We're going to probably see, and I'm not sure, it might be Nevada, might be a combination of states, but they're going to leapfrog Iowa. Iowa's out on its ass. The Iowa caucuses. I mean, dude, what are we going to do if we can't spend a cold ass Iowa night of 2024 in Dubuque, Iowa, asking the pollster why Hillary's going to win by 26 points then?
Like, dude, you sure you don't want to adjust that poll a little bit? Well, that's what the data says. Well, okay.
Our first time in the caucus process, Hillary Clinton was favored by 26. It was basically a coin flip with Bernie Sanders out of the 16 election.
That was the Loras College polling.
They didn't issue polling in 2020 when we but if I recall, that was a night where there were a lot of candidates, right? Think Amy Klobuchar and Pete Buttigieg, and Joe Biden had Klobuchar's contingent not had a part for failing to have proper viability, enough votes in the room.
Right.
Joe Biden wouldn't have achieved viability in Dubuque, Iowa. Like his candidacy was too far below the radar to count into the votes cast. He barely skimmed by, and then just barely beat Buttigieg. But no, he didn't beat Buttigieg. My bad. Not even in the room. I believe it was Bernie, Buttigieg, everybody else, and then Biden. Biden was the last viable.
Squeaked in, yeah.
Yeah.
Because the votes that those that didn't qualify could then recast for somebody else.
Yes. If there wasn't viability initially, but anyways, Joe Biden, remembering his experience in Iowa, Joe Biden probably has final say, right? He's the head of the Democratic Party. When you got a president, he runs the party. So Joe Biden tonight is going to whisper in some dude's ear, probably named Rico or Rocco or something. It's going to tell him, not Iowa. He's going to tell us, like Trudy and Dom, you're spending time in Vegas.
Okay, I'm good with it, right?
You want to Michigan where weed's legal, but it could be Minnesota. We play there. Probably hear us there right now. KTNF 950 AM. But those are the primary probable three. But everybody else, the circus Dom, the party of disarray, they're still coming to Iowa. So we can also go see DeSantis and Trump.
Oh, great. That'd be fun.
You remember Scott Walker trying to pull the protesters' signs away?
Literally the guy on the stage, Scott Walker, wanting to be president. There's protesters. Some people don't like Scott Walker, and I would agree with them, but whatever. They came down to Iowa, and they held up a anti-Scott Walker sign, whatever. They were right in the front couple of rows when Scott Walker was in front of the hay bales giving his speech, and Walker reached out with a microphone in one hand and tried to grab the sign, this cardboard sign out of someone's hands. I mean, literally while he's speaking, trying to violate someone else's right to free speech. Of course, we know Walker. That's how he does things. But I mean, I don't want to go to Iowa, dude.
In quiet desperation is the wanker way.
Wanker.
Now, I did see some reporting, Crudy, that Biden made kind of an offhand comment to a reporter recently about running in 2024, or I don't know about that, or we'll see about that, or something along those lines. You think Biden's going to run again?
Well, the new polling, according to Charles Franklin, 45% favorable, 55% unfavorable. That's about as good as Joe's been in some time. 844-967-2789. Let's sneak in a last couple voices. Rico Suave, how you doing, man?
Hey, Rico.
Hey, doing all right. How you guys doing?
Real good, man. What do you got for us?
Good. Hey, you were mentioning that they talked about the June 6th committee, handed down recommendations for possible prosecution, hopefully anyway. And I was wondering, you think maybe, just maybe, that one of the only senators mentioned in direct testimony by the name, what was it? Oh, Ron Johnson could possibly be on that list.
I would certainly
food for thought.
I would certainly think.
I would think so.
Rico, at minimum, take care, buddy. At minimum, he's a fact witness, right?
Yes.
He received a call, presumably from Jim Trupis, but reportedly from a Trump lawyer talking about U.S. Senator Ron Johnson, that asked him to deliver the fraudulent Trump electors, which I think the DOJ is probably going from seditious conspiracy to the actual coup attempt, the procedural coup. So the next run of indictments, I bet, probably includes some fraudulent Trump electors. That's just one man's prediction. Andrew Hitt hopes I'm wrong. Folks, we are the devil's advocate.
Hey, if you let him get away with it, what's going to stop him from doing it again?
Rick Smith, thank you very much. Charles Franklin, fine pollster, thank you as well. Tomorrow, Dr. Harvey K on the Friday edition of Devil's Advocate. Stick around tonight. Wisco, raised in the Wisco, in the Shaw, and right here, the Empowered Caregivers. Keep it locked, Civic Media.
The staffer stated that Senator Johnson wished to hand deliver to the vice president the fake electors' votes from Michigan and Wisconsin.
Get a great effing criminal defense lawyer. You're going to need it.
Do you want Wisconsin to suck? I don't. That's why you're listening to me now.